This is Family Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Jerry Henderson, and we're going to talk to you today. For the first time, I want to welcome you to the Family Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, Phantom. Thank you for letting me be here. It's a joy to be with you, man.
You're a certified master coach,
Yes,
author,
man.
speaker, and host of the Permission to Love podcast. So another
Yep,
podcaster,
that's
and
me.
that's always cool to talk to another podcaster. I talked to one last night.
Uh,
Um, One of the things we always ask before we get to the heart of your story is what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
oh man, what motivates me? So, I got into coaching a number of years ago because of my own story. And I'm a kid who grew up in childhood trauma, welfare system, moved all around, 17 different schools growing up. Parents started feeding me alcohol at the age of 5, uncles getting me high at the age of 9, and had a lot of trauma. I mean, a lot. And those experiences then gave me a lot of shame. We think about shame. Shame is the belief that there's something wrong with you, that you're fundamentally broken. And so you carry that sense. And then what happened for me is I took that and started trying to figure out how I could achieve my way out of that feeling. So started, pursuing degrees, wound up in the philanthropy world, raised over $1 billion for the cause of global poverty. Challenge was I couldn't fix this in here with
Well,
achievements.
then you still had that. You
I got
didn't.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so then that led me through an 18-month implosion of my life. Had a heart attack, open heart surgery, started going through a divorce, wound up in rehab because I was trying to then drink away the way I felt about myself. And then in rehab, I had this moment when I realized that I had a broken relationship with myself,
Mhm.
and I needed to heal that relationship. And what's done it for me is practicing self-compassion, self-love. And that set me on a journey of research, understanding what it is, and then offering that to other people through the book, the podcast, and things like this. And then coaching to say, hey, let's figure out how you can have a healthy relationship with yourself, healthy relationship with others, and create a life that you actually want to live. So yeah, that's my
Yeah,
story. That's why I do it.
I think that's a really interesting point because when I was talking to you about when I talk to a lot of musicians or
Yeah.
creative people, and the one secret thing they have is they take the pain
Yeah.
that everybody experiences and they're able to kind of channel it and
Yeah.
use it to create the art. Now, the one
Yeah.
problem a lot of artists have is their best work tends to come from tragedy,
Yeah.
melancholy, pain, and
Yeah.
then sometimes they get in a cycle where, if they're happy, they don't produce the work that people buy.
Yeah.
So they
Absolutely.
sometimes they end up on a train where a self-destructive train because that actually creates the work, right? They
Yeah.
actually get management that actually wants them to be in that state because that's
Yeah.
where their best work comes from. So it comes with a very self-destructive cycle.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of look at yourself and say,
Mm,
how can I not do that and
that's
still be me?
fascinating. Yeah. Right. That's fascinating. That cycle, that my best work comes out of maybe me not being my best self at times, right? And the pain. And so I keep reactivating that cycle. It's interesting because self relationship, right, can be some of the same things where we get addicted to shame, we get addicted to self-hatred, and it's wiring, it's programming. So it sounds like that's a lot of that experience, right? We go back to the pain because it feels comfortable, it feels like
Yeah,
home, feels like us.
safety.
Yeah,
To me, it's kind of counterintuitive
yeah,
that the pain could be your safe place.
absolutely.
And that ends up being a
100%.
big problem for a lot of people. Like the pain is the safe place to get out of that, to actually get away from the pain feels
Mm.
unsafe.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
how do you rewire that? You
Yeah,
know?
well, I think one of this is so true, right? Because one of the things we realize that self-sabotage is about that, right? It's about drawing us back to what feels comfortable, what feels safe. And so when we start to understand that we've developed coping mechanisms, right? And those coping mechanisms were ways for us to stay safe. So, for example, if you grew up in a household that had a lot of trauma in it and you knew that you had to please everybody so you'd stay safe, you get wired in to be a people pleaser.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so what once served you now is destroying your life, right?
You get
And
resentful, right? Your people pleasers eventually hit the critical mass
yeah,
where then suddenly people don't understand because they thought you wanted to do that. And
right.
it's they said, why is it my fault? Well, I thought that's the way you are.
Exactly right. No, it's a coping mechanism I have. It makes me feel safe because not pleasing people got me a lot of trauma. And now I do it because that's what I know. and to not please you. It's funny, like some people, I say they go on autopilot when I'm coaching people. They go autopilot people pleaser because it's like a wiring in their nervous system that just they default to. And part of the process is like understanding there's not anything wrong with you. That's a coping mechanism. It kept you safe. It's just not keeping you safe anymore. It feels like it is. But now with that recognition, we can get in there and start putting some tools in place to rewire you, to set some boundaries, and realize setting boundaries is going to be super uncomfortable. But just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's not right. That's the confusion.
That's the thing. Because sometimes like going on autopilot is somehow comfortable, but it's like, to really, self-actualize, you have to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
In my day job, I'm in tech. Right?
Okay. Got it.
And tech, there are some people like I'm a mainframe guy, but like, well, mainframe's kind of going away. It's still a little bit there, but we're in the age of crypto and AI.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like eventually you're not going to be able to just live on that. Like, so you need to kind of reinvent yourself and stay up on things. You kind of have to relearn things exponentially to stay on top of it. Some people don't want to do that, right? They didn't want to be able to say, well, I got to this point and I want to kind of just be in this safe zone, but the world is in this evolutionary state.
Yeah.
Where all these things are happening. You can't necessarily stay in the same place.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's like a lot of people don't like, I don't feel comfortable with that. Well, that's kind of where life is.
Exactly. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if we feel comfortable with it or not, right? We're just going to get left behind. And if we get into, like you said, self-discovery, self-expansion, right? A lot of ways, let's learn how can we expand ourselves through curiosity and make it fun, right? Instead of how do we turn it from something that feels so scary to us into something that will activate the creativity piece, because the neuroscience in the brain, right? The right side is the avoidant part of our brain. It's fear, fight, flight, amygdala activity. Left side, when we activate that through creativity, curiosity, it activates our approach system, feel good chemicals. And so we have to go, well, how do I start to activate that side? And one of the quickest ways is curiosity, because a lot of times I find the not wanting to grow, wanting to stay stuck and safe goes back to fears, doesn't it? Don't you think?
It's all fear and safety, and it's also like trying to fit within the box.
Yeah.
On one hand, I've been in corporate America, and they say they want a creative person. They say they want to, so then that person tends to be neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Tends to be the person that's not going to want to sit in the box.
Yeah.
Maybe doesn't want to work 9 to 5. Actually, doesn't work well 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But they proceed to put them in that box and then wonder why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like you don't get that type of person to fit within that kind of artifice. They want them to, and they don't get the fact that like you need to be able to allow that kind of magic, and like you can't always put it in the bottle. They want to put the magic in the bottle, and they don't understand the bottle is the restraint, and then you won't get it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And do you think people in that scenario, they wind up self-abandoning, right? They abandon their gifts or talents. And man, I would think, I know for me, you just start to slowly wither, right?
Yeah, where you end up not either, like you get disenchanted and you don't produce, and then you get stuck and you're not really, you kind of just half ass in it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We can say things on the show, but it's
you have ass. Yeah.
You just don't do your best. And to me, it's like, if you have systems that don't allow people to do their best, then you wonder why it's like mediocrity. Why is there why don't people perform? Because if the people aren't happy, like if you ask people, are you really happy?
Yeah.
Are you really doing what you feel you should be doing? Are you doing it because you're obligated, you're a people pleaser, you got, imposter syndrome. People have so many hang-ups, and then eventually you get to this age where I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
They want to talk to somebody like you, right?
Yeah.
You want to go to their therapist, they want to find out something, they go into more, holistic thinking.
Yeah.
They get outside of like the kind of limited mindset.
Yeah.
Try to go toward a growth mindset, but they still, if you don't handle that looking glass self, you don't, like Victorians, like poets, like they would get absorbed in the looking glass self.
Yeah.
And like challenging, like, what is reality? Like, what is it that I want? What is passion? What and dive into it. And it's hard.
It is. It's
You're gonna
hard.
get criticized. You know,
Yeah.
anybody who goes to the edges outside the bell curve
Mhm.
is not always immediately accepted,
No, it's
and that
not.
is unsafe.
I'd say brings up a lot of fears, right? But there comes a point, right, where the pain of abandoning yourself or the pain of losing who you are through all of the trying to be who you think you should be or you're supposed to be, that pain really starts to outweigh whatever rewards we get. And like you said, we get into these little existential moments where we go, I got to change. I got to do something different. And that self-discovery process of going, how do I get out of that fear mode, that fixed mindset, growth mindset? How do I activate who I truly, authentically am? A lot of times, that's a work in itself, isn't it? Figuring out who's
Yeah,
in here,
and it's sometimes like
buried.
the law of attraction is the group of people that you're around
Mm,
before or
yeah,
now in the
yeah,
future might not be the same group if you
no,
actually get to where you need to be. And
absolutely,
is that gonna be a problem for you to realize, like, you might find a new tribe,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah, because
And
your nervous system isn't comfortable anymore around the old tribe, right? And it shouldn't be. Well, they say you're the sum total of your closest 5 relationships or something like that. But as you start to heal your relationship with yourself, what also heals is your chooser, who you start choosing in your life, and you get more clarity. I always say we choose to the level that we believe we're worthy of, right?
mhm,
And our worthiness increases through things like self-love and that perception. Then we go, wait a second, it's not that you're a horrible person over here, and I'm not saying that about you. It's just that I'm on this path now, and it just starts to happen, and we can start to think that that means there's something wrong with us, we're doing something wrong. I
mhm,
tell you, if you're experiencing that, it's a normal part of the process
yeah.
of self-expansion.
Well,
100%.
also the shame, and we get so many,
Yeah.
so many systems impose shame,
Yeah, they
from
do.
like a microcosm family system to a macrocosm.
Yeah.
And I was a sociology major, but the idea of the
Right.
microcosm and the macrocosm, and he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, at the individual kind of family level,
Yeah.
you could got, somebody could have been pushing this
Yeah.
system, this idea, like
Yeah.
you're not good enough. You're
Yeah.
not ever gonna be good enough, right? But
Yeah.
that's not truth. That's a they made you believe that,
Yeah.
but that's not really true. It's
No.
just like what they put on you, and then
Mhm.
you absorb it. And is if you get that as a very young age, it's hard to
Yeah,
get out of that, right?
it is. Absolutely. Really hard. Shame is so sticky. I say it's like the tar you're trying to pull off your soul, and I find that, either it's systems or, macro systems, micro systems, units of families, et cetera, where you go, a lot of times what people are doing, they're trying to relieve their own sense of shame by putting that on you,
You put it on
right?
the other. If you put
Yeah,
it on somebody else,
exactly.
and it's really like, the person that put it on you, they probably have massive amounts of,
Yeah.
like, issues,
Yeah,
right? But they
absolutely.
take it and they give it to other.
Yeah,
It's the blame game,
exactly.
the resentment game.
Yeah,
And, you know,
100%.
and
Yeah.
so it's like, where's the responsibility game?
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's, it happens and it doesn't make any of it right, right? When you realize that that's probably all they know is shame, and then it's like not normal for them to not be in the shame transferring business, they're shame dealers. And
Mhm.
so you go, wow, there's no justification for it, but it then helps you reframe it and go, oh, it wasn't that there was something bad about me. That person just needed to relieve their guilt or shame, or they're in that structure. So all of those are strategies for us to de-identify with shame or disidentify with shame. Shame's not you. It feels like it's you. It's like a
Mhm.
parasite that tricks the host into thinking that they are the shame.
You have to shed the shame. You have to kind of reprogram,
Yeah,
that out of that. And
absolutely.
as an artist, we try to like take it,
Mhm.
turn it into a movie script, turn it
Yeah,
into a teleplay, turn it into as you're an actor, you take
yeah,
that in your method acting, you use it in your
mm,
performance.
yeah,
But
yeah,
can you actually get out of it? Like, can
yeah,
you get out of your character?
mm,
Can you actually say, well, that's the character, or is that you? Like, have you
yeah,
transferred it,
yeah,
or
right,
can you shed it?
yeah,
Can you get to the
absolutely.
next thing? And that's where people have to do work,
Yeah,
to be able to use it,
mm,
and like lessons learned. Like,
yeah,
can you take a lesson
yeah,
and actually take the criticism, right,
yeah,
and use it to do better?
Yeah.
and realize that you're never going to be perfect, but you can try to have little wins
Yeah.
instead
Right.
of thinking like everything's a loss.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because you talk about that alchemy, right? Of taking the pain and turning it into something creative. And it's kind of Viktor Frankl stuff, right? Man's search for meaning, that if I can take my suffering and make something meaningful from it, it then helps me make some sense of the suffering and transmutes it into something. And I think that's a beautiful stage of the process. But as you said, then there's a place where if I'm trapped in a cycle of that, and I need to keep repeating that in order for me to feel like that's who I am, versus, okay, I'm going to take the pain, I'm going to make some meaning out of it, but then I'm going to start to go, what meaning did I make about myself?
Hmm.
Right? Like the core belief pattern of experience, I make meaning from it, core beliefs that didn't drive actions that give me new experiences that make me say, I experienced that. So that means I'm something bad, I'm something wrong, or I've got to stay in this pattern. We're great meaning makers, but sometimes our meaning about who we are can get a little, quirky sometimes. And that's part of the work, reassigning meaning. So,
But they gotta have like you could go and be a big learner, right? But if you never take anything and take an action on it,
yeah.
right? Like what's the point of building
Yeah.
up? Like I know a lot of like an example, like musician that just spends all the time doing runs to do
Mm.
great solos, but never puts it into a song.
Yeah. Right.
Like so, it's like okay, well, you never you're really good at that, but you're not confident enough to even put it into it to present it.
Yeah.
If you can't take it and act on it,
Yeah.
what have you really learned?
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. And it's the acting on it that solidifies it, right? It wires it into our brain. We talk about what fires together, wires together. And when we start, connecting words, learning, action, I often tell people your brain doesn't always just believe what you say or what you think, it believes what you do. And
Mhm.
so when you start doing something, self-loving actions, your brain starts to go, oh, maybe we do love ourselves.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
put it together.
yeah,
You gotta have the
yeah,
whole it's like the whole picture.
yeah,
Like, if
absolutely.
you don't complete the thought,
Yeah,
if you don't take action from the plan, right? You have a plan, but you
yeah,
never act on it.
yeah,
Then, like,
absolutely.
then you don't have a repeatable process. Like,
Mhm.
the 10,000 hours that a
Yeah,
musician takes to learn the piano,
yeah,
you
mhm,
kinda have to have brain exercises with remapping, right?
yeah,
And people don't put the work in. Right, and or maybe
absolutely.
realize is like, even though I'm a musician, I still practice. Even I
Yeah,
did my 10,000 hours, why? Because I still need to it's
yeah,
like it will go away if I don't keep up on it.
yeah,
So if you
absolutely.
don't keep up with things, they
Yeah.
tend to fade out.
They do, 100%. We all have to do that work. I always tell people, self-love, because self-love is one of the things that I work on with people in their relationship with themselves. And sometimes it gets a bad rap. People think it's narcissistic, or they think it's, selfish, or
Yeah,
yeah, people are tapping out. Interesting about narcissism, it's one of the highest forms of shame. Research is clear on this, that narcissism isn't self-love. It's a massive compensation for low self-esteem and shame. And so we start rejecting self-love because we go, man, it's all this stuff. But the research is really clear on this, that self-love is something that is a skill that we learn. It is a habit, just like we learn the habit of beating the hell out of ourselves or shaming ourselves and criticizing or imposter syndrome. Those are all wirings. And self-love is also a habit. And we do 5 things: are the way that we think, and connecting emotion to those thoughts helps wire it in our brain. The words that we say about ourselves with emotion, then the actions that we take, and then visualization with the emotion, seeing ourselves as somebody who's worthy of love, and then then the actions, and then the other one, relationships, having the relationships that support our growth, that send us the message that we're worthy of love and good things. And those are practice. I tell people, interesting, you talked about the piano, that self-love is just like learning an instrument or learning a language. You just keep doing it, you keep
yeah,
practicing it, you're
yeah,
patient.
you don't stop. You see, like, a jazz musician,
Yeah,
they don't stop till they're not here.
yeah,
They
right,
show they can't actually play the keys.
yeah,
You're always playing the keys. It's not like, "Oh, it's just a young person's game." No, because it's
yeah,
like a love of the craft.
yeah,
So it doesn't just fade. It's not time stamped to a
yeah,
certain period in your life.
yeah,
It's like
right,
through your whole life. So when
yeah,
people like they do these
mm,
flash things, like, "Oh, I'm just gonna do this this like flash diet, this new
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
I'm going to get in
Hmm.
10 steps to be wealthy. It's like, what
Yeah.
you have to have consistency. I
Yeah.
think you have to be consistent. It has to be repeatable, and it
Yeah.
has to be manageable. Like, is it
Yeah.
actually something that you're going to stick to?
Yeah.
If you're
Right.
not going to stick to it, then it's not going to
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it gets into habit formation, right? Versus, and it becomes part of our identity too, right? And it becomes a core part of who you said. Like you said, the jazz musician is just that is them. And for them to not express that just is them not being who they are in so much of their DNA. And so when we set these things, there's goal oriented, we set a goal, we want to do something, we start moving towards it. And then we're really dependent on that stage on our willpower. Of course, willpower is finite, right? And then for most people, when they want to make change, they put 10 things together. I want to do these 10 things. Ain't going to happen, right? And so we want to take it away from it having to be willpower or that part of the brain that's, outcome, goal oriented. This is why I'm doing the behavior, to habit, which is cue based, which is it's getting wired into me and it becomes just who I am in some
Comes
sense.
like automatic, like breathing. You
Yeah,
just if
exactly.
you just like the things that you don't think about.
Yeah,
And it's interesting, like with words, like the words you like
yeah,
listening skills, but
mm,
also like comprehension skills, like with the listening, like your self talk.
yeah.
Are you
100%.
really understanding the words you're saying to yourself when you say, "Well, I can't do that. I'm not good
Yeah.
enough." Right?
Mhm.
Are you really listening to yourself?
Yeah.
And even if you change those words, is it really that you believe in yourself, or you just saying it
Mhm.
because somebody told you to say it?
Yeah.
Like, so you have to actually understand the intention, like the
Mhm.
nonverbal. Like
Yeah.
musicians, we get into a lot of nonverbal
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
communication,
Okay.
and,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like very, it's like you look at somebody, it's like it's like, okay, are they getting it or are they not getting
Yeah.
it? And whether they tell me or not, I can hear it,
Yeah. Right.
I
Yeah.
can see it.
Hmm.
And so I think people give off vibes, and you can like, do you read it or do you not read it?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's so good, right? Because it is in our wiring and that nonverbal, and then not realizing what that's doing. Fascinating research that self critical talk actually activates the amygdala, gets us into fight or flight
Mm,
because, our brains don't always know the difference between is an event happening now or am I just thinking about it? For
it's like
example, you
wolf
think
at the
about, I'm going to go,
door, wolf at
yeah,
the door.
yeah. I'm going to go confront my boss on something. What happens? I get all the pit in the gut, the emotions. Your body is like getting in fight or flight around it. And you go, man, when we're talking to ourselves that way, you know what we're doing? We're keeping our stress levels really high. And then the slightest thing that comes puts the stress over. We think, why am I popping off all the time? Why am I overreacting? One of the
Road
first things,
rage, like that.
yeah, you're in there in a war with yourself all the time. And one of the things you can do is start to lower the stress level by changing the way that you talk about yourself. It activates that part of your prefrontal cortex. You get into that space of reasoning, relaxation, parasympathetic nervous system. You go, all right, I'm better, just by
Yeah.
changing the way that you talk to yourself. So,
Yeah, like if you do like Tai Chi, like I'm
yeah,
Buddhist, I chant,
yeah,
do Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism,
yeah,
chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. But
yeah,
it's like, what I find is like when I'm chanting and I'm doing my breathing,
yeah,
it gives me this kind of gets away from the noise
yeah,
because we have a society so full of noise.
absolutely.
And if
Yeah.
you get into this, like whether meditation, but some people say, I
Mhm.
can't do that because I can't get to that state. Whether you go for a walk in the woods, go walk with your dog or
Absolutely.
something,
Yeah.
just to get away from the noise and to
Hmm.
kind of center yourself and find a way.
Yeah.
I'm in New Hampshire. It's like a walk in the pines,
Ah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know. And to me, it's like, nature is the cathedral, was like
yeah.
famous poet said that
Hmm. Hmm.
because I feel it.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah, you feel the vibration of that. I'm here in Colorado, so I got these mountains, I got these,
yeah, same
pine trees.
idea.
Yeah, to get out, to clear it. And, I remember when I first started meditation, and it was one of the challenging things because of this sucker, right? The monkey mind. But then it was also nervous system stuff. I didn't feel safe sitting there. But what I committed to was I'm going to sit in stillness and silence until I can sit in stillness and silence
Mm.
and allowing it to go, I'm safe, I'm okay. Because a lot of times we're afraid to go be by ourselves and be present because of what we're going to do to ourselves in that moment. And,
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know,
people
yeah,
they get all that stuff around them all
Yeah.
that noise because they're scared of the actual
Yeah.
looking glass self. They're
Yep.
scared of that,
Yeah.
and they don't.
Absolutely.
They get themselves involved in all this stuff, so
Yeah.
they don't have to deal with the looking glass self. They don't have to have the self
Yeah.
examination because they
Yeah.
don't want to. They don't want to really see what that
Mm.
is.
So true. Yeah, and we walk around living unexamined lives and no judgment in that, right? It's just the reality. And even practicing self-compassion towards ourselves to realize that we're afraid of what might pop up. And then letting ourselves be compassionate even when that stuff does pop up,
Mhm.
because we'll have our inner critic and then we're in there saying, just stop it, shut the hell up. What we're trying to do is, heal the voice of an inner critic with the voice of another inner critic. And we're just matching it with the same energy. And you go, no, even if you're in there beating yourself up, witness it, love it, thank it for it trying to serve you, because it is trying to help you. It's trying to get you to criticize yourself so you can change something about yourself, so you can stay safe, be loved and accepted. And so what we want to start with is, how can you start giving yourself that compassion now in this moment and make you your own safe space? Yeah.
It seems
Powerful.
very difficult because there's so much toxicity,
Yeah.
in the greater environment now.
Yeah.
Like every time you look, there's something like negative. It's
Yeah.
like, well, some institutions are based on like the profit motive is based
Yeah.
on pushing the negative.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then social media is
Yeah.
pushing the negative or pushing idealized
Mm-hmm.
things that are, we're not
Yeah.
really in your interest.
Yeah. So true.
And so it's like you get kids like, I saw something my daughter was showing me where
Mm.
somebody was like talking about ideal body types.
Ah, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was ideal facial structure, ideal, like,
Mhm.
body structure, and,
Yeah.
like, these teens were, you know, getting manipulated,
Yeah.
and it's really dangerous for, like, a tween
Yeah.
to be getting this kinda information, and that's what's in their feed. I'm like, "Their parents need to know," and my
Yeah.
daughter's, like, a 25 something, and she's like, "Yeah, this is really bad
Yeah.
for this younger generation that they're getting this kinda stuff
Yeah.
that's making them say, 'Well, who's the judge of, like, what's ideal?'"
Mm.
It's like, why is
Yeah.
that? And what's ideal is usually
Mhm.
but not very, like,
Yeah.
helpful, or it's,
No,
like,
not
not
at
really
all.
in your health interest. It's, like,
Yeah.
unrealistic.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, it's heartbreaking when you think about it, right? And these kiddos, and then you turn into adults that are self-rejecting because I'm not like that, and they get into the comparison trap, and I wish I was like this. But good, we know that all they're showing us was what they want us to see, right?
mhm,
And like you said, then the other factors of negativity, there are money-making machines that keep us glued to our own stress hormones when we're watching that stuff, and we get addicted to it. Reality is, yeah, that it's heartbreaking to watch when we compare, then we judge, and judgment always creates separation, right?
yeah,
If I
yeah, we
judge you,
need to, like, the strength of a society.
yeah,
I was
absolutely,
just reading about some indigenous, the Cherokee and
yeah,
Blackfoot and some of the
yeah,
indigenous practices and, how music,
mm,
for indigenous people is like a communication tool.
yeah,
Between like like the other world in
yeah,
this world
yeah,
and the natural world,
right,
and there's, it's just this kind of softer skills, and people's like, oh, and you see some people like new age are like, oh, they're getting into it, like
mm,
they
yeah,
go to the east, but there's also like the same eastern kind of philosophies are in Native American indigenous
yeah,
tribes, have the same kind of concepts.
yeah,
You don't have to
absolutely,
go to Japan or China or
mhm,
Tibet. You
yeah,
could read about the Cherokee or
yeah,
you could read about the Indian tribes, the Blackfoot, Apache,
yeah,
all of them,
yeah,
right? And it's the
mm,
same thing, but it's like a level of understanding of
yeah,
cross culture.
yeah,
You
absolutely,
is it a melting pot or is it a fruit salad?
yeah,
You
right,
know, it's like
yeah,
so it's
yeah,
like
I love that, I
can
love
you
it,
can people be who they are, or do they have to
yeah,
shed who they are?
mm,
You know?
yeah, wow, that's good, because man, we've done so much shedding of our authentic self and bolting on, no wonder we're so tired, fatigued, and depressed. We've bolted on all these things that we're not supposed to be carrying. At the same time, not connecting with ourselves. And you're so right. I mean, I do the same thing. I study all of these, either philosophies, spirituality, religion. There's this common thread, right, that just goes through it. you know, and this process of learning how to have connection. And, you know, whether you said New Age, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, I mean, all of it, Native American practices where you go, there's a common thread of connection, something bigger,
It's
something
all of it.
greater,
Like
oneness.
humanism.
Yeah,
Like you get to it.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
every human being to me is a right to be on the planet,
yeah,
right? And then
mhm.
people want to tell you like what they don't. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
the idea of life is so amazing, right? But then
yeah,
you just minimize it.
yeah,
This
right,
person's not allowed to be in
yeah,
this zone.
yeah,
And I'm like, really?
yeah,
Like, if you
right,
found this type of life on Mars, you'd be freaking out,
yeah,
right? You'd
yeah,
be like, oh, it's the most amazing thing, but it's like not amazing here.
yeah, right,
So
exactly.
that's the relativity of like,
Yeah.
what are we doing
Mm,
and why are we doing it?
yeah,
Questions like, why are you so angry?
yeah,
Why are you
mm,
so pissed off?
yeah,
Why are you
mhm,
so upset about somebody else's practice? What does that have to do with you?
yeah,
Right?
right.
It's like,
Mm,
why can't
that's
you
good.
live and let live?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Why do you have to, distract yourself from your own stuff by, going after everybody else, right? And if people will do the work, if we'll do the work, I think it's Ram Dass who said, I can do nothing for you but work on myself. And you can do nothing for me but work on yourself. And the thought of that is not that we abandon helping people, but the better version I become, the more likely I am to help you, to
Yeah,
love you.
more you'll be empathetic. The more
Exactly.
likely you'll be willing to
Mm.
embrace
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
and not be fearful of the other.
Exactly.
And the
Mm.
fear of the other is probably a fear of yourself
Yeah.
that you haven't
Mm.
handled.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you can't handle things that are inside of you
Mm.
that you see inside somebody else, and then
Yeah.
you punish them for your own feeling.
Yeah.
Like, like,
Absolutely.
really?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Huh. That's a really great point. Because you think about even the term or the thought of the other, when you realize there's no otherness, there's only oneness, and we're all connected, and we're all, these humans on this planet that's flying through the universe trying to figure out how to do life. And we're all living this life right now that we're in for the first time. We don't have a manual on it. And yet instead of, grace, compassion, mercy, and goodness coming out, we choose, as you said, that judgment, that separation, the identification of the other, and it just creates that suffering, that separation.
Yeah, except
Yeah.
for, it's like
Mm,
to the point where, like, if
mm,
you think about it, I won't say, but this idea, like,
yeah.
somebody's starving,
Mm,
but it's like politically, you think it's weak to give them food.
yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
it's like, instead of thinking, okay, like you see somebody starving,
Mm,
if you saw a dog starving, wouldn't you give the dog food?
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
If you see a
Mhm,
cat starving, wouldn't you give the cat food? If you
yeah.
saw an injured bird, wouldn't you want to help them?
Yeah.
You see an injured human and you're like, well, they're not in the right group.
Mm,
Get them out of here. I'm
yeah.
like, really?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I know. It's crazy, isn't it? And we get all of our stories, whether it's, like you said, politics, or it's, just tribalism in our brains and the things that we have to go, I'm me, you're you, and for me to help you means XYZ or whatever. Or, like you said, we disconnect from even our authentic self and the empathy that we have within us to then be moved to help other people. Yeah, it's
And like I had cancer.
okay.
My wife now has cancer. Now
Oh, man.
I'm more, because I went through cancer, I understand it, right?
Mm,
And so
yeah.
I can be for her there for her. But I've seen people like when I had my cancer
Mm,
at 27,
mm.
level 3 sarcoma. I
Wow.
had some people around me, some young people around me, and they disappeared. And I
Wow.
didn't expect that they would. And then there were people around me that didn't disappear, and I didn't think that they would be there.
Mm,
And then
yeah.
what I realized is that some people couldn't handle
Mm,
the fact that, a young person could have something like that and it could die, like the mortality
yeah.
of it, right?
Right.
The heaviness of like, oh,
Yeah.
you're supposed to be like 20 in your 20s, like that's not supposed to
Wow.
happen. So I think they couldn't handle it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, fine, they couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
But it's like the idea like you can't
Mm,
empathize or they
yeah.
put it so into themselves that they couldn't be around it. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And
It is.
later in life, I ran into him and I didn't like put it down on him. I was like, okay, you
Yeah.
weren't in a place to be able to handle it.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm friends with them now, but I was like, it's like they just weren't in the right place.
Yeah. No, and like you said, you were a reminder to them of their weakness, their vulnerability, or humanity, right? In some sense. But Phantom, I say, yeah, thank goodness you're here. You're giving this goodness back to the world, that you're a survivor. And I'm deeply sorry that your wife's having to experience that right now. Yeah.
Well, she's doing well. She's gone under all the treatment, but it's like,
Okay.
things can happen. It's like sometimes you get people in the right place
Yeah. Yeah.
that, to have the understanding. You
Yeah.
like sometimes you have to, it's kind of faded that
Yeah.
you have these connections, you
Yeah.
have these experiences, you have shared experiences,
Yeah.
and it's just interesting that the self-examination that has to be done.
Yeah.
It's hard work, like you're
Yeah.
saying. It's like the idea of like self-compassion. Some people can think that's like, well, that's weak.
Yeah. Right.
That's like foo-foo. They can't get in. They
Yeah.
just say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm like, leave that at the door. They can't get into it."
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Well, it's interesting, right? Because when we do the research on self-compassion, it is absolutely a massive strength in a person's life. And it's really associated with resilience and the science of resilience, right? When we face a setback, our ability to come back from that setback is how resilient we are. And if we stay below that line of, you're getting ready to go into something that's, painful or struggle or stress, and you dip down, that's normal. And if you stay down there, then you're in a place of, having some real struggles, mental health issues, etc. But the resilience is the piece that pulls us back out. And self-compassion is a key part that allows us to come back and come back stronger. And so I look at self-compassion as a tool in my tool belt for strength. I mean, it's more than that, but that's the way I phrase it, as a strength to help build my resilience, build my empathy towards other people, connect me to who I am. And it's bravery to go in and, as you said, look in the looking glass and really say, who's in here, man? What's going on? Why am I repeating the patterns? Why am I staying in a cycle of suffering? Do I want freedom from the suffering cycle? Or do I want to not appear as weak because I'm practicing self-compassion? And so the self-compassion piece isn't about, just giving yourself a pass. And I know we're scared of that sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah.
I give myself a pass, I'm slippery slope. I'm, not catastrophize. Yeah.
We want people to feel like, well, you're not doing the work, right? You
Yeah.
give yourself a pass. But I think it's like the opposite. It's like,
Yeah.
this idea I run into people with like the perfection trap.
Yeah.
You get the person that does like 100 takes.
Yeah.
Like in music, right? They're doing 100 takes,
Yeah.
and you go back and you look at like take 4 is like the best one.
Yeah. Right.
And by the time they get to take 104, they're like wrecking the song.
Yeah.
And and as a producer, you got to tell us like, hey man, it's like you're destroying what you did, right? You keep on second guessing yourself. Now you're taking away from the original intent.
Wow.
And so like to me, it's like I try to get them to like understand like if you're a painter and you put that stroke down on the canvas, that's it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I think music is like a sound painting. I tell them like that, right? Sometimes that stroke, the way you hit the canvas,
Yeah.
even though the digital world, we can keep on doing it. Sometimes it's not good to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to like just let that be and move on.
Yeah.
And they find it's like once you give yourself permission to actually allow that to be, then I think you can grow, because sometimes those imperfections, like in art, kind of make the piece. And I think it makes it in life too. People, people don't, maybe not. It's like, oh, I got to get it. Like, what is perfect?
Yeah.
Like, it's really kind of very subjective.
It is very subjective. That's interesting, because what I'm hearing, and check me on this, is that when we get to a state of over perfection in our creation or the things that we're doing, we drown out our authenticity. We're losing the part of us that's no longer about creation. It turns into more mechanical, and not to say that we can't bring our best selves and all of that to it, but all of a sudden it tips over and it becomes something that's really not about the art anymore, but more about who I am and what I'm being perceived as I'm putting this down. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah. I've even run into directors and actors that say
Yeah.
sometimes like the earlier takes
Mm.
for them are better.
Yeah.
And if they keep on doing it, they wreck it. They wreck the
Yeah.
moment. They lose the energy.
Yeah.
That they start to phone it in. You start it's like what it's just not authentic anymore.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
it's like when you start to
Mm.
realize like you got to trust.
Yeah.
It's a level of trust. Some it's like trust in people around you, trust in yourself.
Mm.
And when you don't, a lot of it comes down to like that self love again. If you
Yeah.
don't trust yourself,
Yeah.
then that's where you'll see this kind of behavior
Yeah.
where the people just
Absolutely.
like they don't know what's good.
Yeah.
So they're
Right.
just throwing it at the wall because they just are like, I don't know, and trying
Mhm.
to find it, but they can't actually measure it.
Yeah.
So they can't even when it
Mm.
happens, they don't even recognize it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and at some point, right, it's never gonna be good enough if it being good enough is a signal to you that you're good enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So,
because you
yeah, if you
haven't
never
come to
feel
terms with it, like you
yeah,
haven't resolved
yeah.
it.
If I'm always chasing perfection because I think that's what's gonna make me feel good about me and I'm good enough now because I did something just right, man, we'll always find the person who then created the perfect piece in some sense will still be there later judging that perfect piece
Yeah, they're
because we're
never getting it.
carrying it.
They're
Yeah,
always looking for it, and they're never
yeah,
happy. It's like the person looking for $1,000,000,
yeah,
and then suddenly they're going for 2,000,000, then they go to
yeah,
3,000,000, but it's like, what is it that you were gonna do with the $1,000,000?
yeah. Right, right, right. Mhm.
Like, it's like now you don't even know. It's like now you're just chasing the money, but the
Yeah,
money was supposed to bring you something, but when you got there, it didn't bring it to you because you actually didn't
yeah,
resolve what the problem was.
yeah, right. Yeah. You didn't have a real clear why behind it, and it like gets lost in all of that. And you're chasing the thing just for the thing at that point. Wow. That's really good, Phantom. I love that. It's good stuff, man. Yeah.
So, like, lessons, like, maybe examples of, like, are there any key lessons that, like, from your practice, what you've done that maybe I could take away, like, 3 things that you found
Yeah.
that were maybe unexpected?
Yeah, I'd say number one was to realize that if we're in a place where we are carrying that story that there's something wrong with us, we're uniquely broken, and we get into all these behaviors and these coping mechanisms, to first have the awareness that that's what's going on with you. So awareness for people is just so important because otherwise we're carrying that with us forever. The other thing is to realize that things like shame or low self-esteem or those are all things that we can actually get addicted to. And if we got addicted to them, okay, because the brain thinks a thought, when it thinks that thought, we release chemicals, and then those chemicals cause us to release more thoughts, right? So the minute we say I'm a piece of crap, and all of a sudden, I start to feel that way, then I start to remember all the reasons why I am, and I get caught in a loop. So we've got an addiction. So we got awareness of how these things got developed to keep us safe. They then become addictions for us. They become patterns in our life. The great news about that is if they are patterns, we can then change them. That's the third thing, is to realize that this is a skill that we're talking about. People aren't born with or without self-love. Can we have environments that help us do that? Absolutely. But even if we have those adverse childhood experiences or other toxic relationships that have happened in our life that have stripped away that sense of loving ourselves and accepting ourselves, knowing that it's a skill and it's a habit and that you can wire it into your system the same way that other stuff got wired in, really freeing. So hey, it's coping mechanisms you develop to get safe. Got wired in your system because you kept repeating that as a way to stay safe. Great news. You can now do the opposite with the same things that got wired. You had an experience, you made meaning, etc. And so we can liberate ourselves from
And
those
remap
cycles.
it, yeah, remap the wire,
Absolutely.
redo it. Like, that's what, we do all the time
Yeah,
in IT.
absolutely.
We have mapping exercises
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we're mapping our databases and kind of rewiring it for new capabilities,
Yeah.
new functions, and it's like these
Yeah.
things. I always like the idea of the left right brain,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
like the brain in the way computers work.
Yeah.
Now we're in this outer AI world,
Yeah.
and the AI is all about language.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
about like taking natural language
Okay.
and getting the computer to actually be able to understand natural language and human concepts through language.
Wow.
so that the programmer doesn't have to do it in code, that you can actually speak kind of like, in Star Trek, you
Wow.
speak to the computer,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
comes
right,
back
yeah.
to you. That's like that's the AI. That's the
Uh,
idea of AI back then with Roddenberry
yeah,
had,
yeah,
right? And now we actually in a
wow,
world where that can work. That
that's
actually
incredible.
works.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing, man. Love that. Anything we see on TV, we know it's coming pretty soon,
Yeah,
right?
all
Or
that
yeah,
stuff. The cell phone is kind of like the
yeah,
tricorder,
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And we have our iPads now, which are kind of like, little things they were examining, or
Yeah.
doctor, yeah,
Yeah,
whoever. Yeah,
yeah, McCoy, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that stuff. He's
yeah.
like, yeah, that's that. It's like everything we see is like it happens, but like the fear today is like, the machines are gonna take over.
Yeah.
But I believe that human creativity and spirit and
Mm,
just like the fact that everybody has their own unique human experience, and
yeah.
that trumps all
Mm,
the tech out there.
yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
people have to believe that human creativity
Mm,
is, there's a lot of fears. Oh, it's just gonna replace
yeah.
me. I'm not gonna have anything. It's like, no. It's like you have to if you believe in yourself and
Yeah.
you believe that you have a voice
Yeah.
and you double down on what you feel
Mm,
you can contribute and you give
yeah.
yourself the permission to
Mhm.
contribute. Because I think that's the big problem. A lot of people is like, I can't do it because I'm not Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I'm not Joan Baez. I'm not Bob Dylan. I'm not
Mhm.
Bill
Yeah.
Gates.
Yeah.
But you're you, right?
Exactly. Yep. Thank God you're not those people. You are you. And part of the work is accepting you as you are and then allowing that creative person and soul who you are to blossom and to flourish. And I love what you said, that differentiation of the creative spark within humanity. Right. And that as you go, you anchor into that, you allow yourself to be you, and you allow yourself to embrace and accept the authentic you. And that's the thing, we're always resisting who we are, rejecting who we are, and that creates those wars. We have to have some self reconciliation.
Because we are our brand. The whole thing with this modern era is,
Yeah,
we get out there on the net is like people can brand themselves.
yeah, mhm,
You are your brand. You are,
yep,
and like you can get your opinion to be a brand.
yeah,
You can get your voice to be a brand.
yep,
You can get your ideas to be a brand, and you can actually
yeah,
actualize it and make it happen
hmm,
with all the
absolutely,
tools that are out there. So it's a matter of us like, well, how can I do that? Like, because you can.
yeah. Yeah. And part of the you can is overcoming the fear. And one of the fears we have to overcome is the fear of sucking at something.
Yeah, but
Right.
you suck at it until you get it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's like until the drummer gets that beat,
Yeah.
you didn't see him when he was sucking at it, right?
Yeah.
You see
Exactly.
him when he's on stage. It's like you didn't get to see the work he did to get to that point.
Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
wasn't just an automatic. It wasn't 0 to 100,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. You want to look at his first performance way back in the day. It
Yeah,
certainly
it's
isn't
like
where,
it's not what it
yeah,
is now. It's like, and
exactly.
everybody thinks they gotta just go with their A game. It's like you gotta get
Yeah.
to the A game,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder if there's some connection there too, where we're not as, in some stage back in the day, I'll be 55 this year. I was able to practice and experiment in a smaller circle, right? I could go to my friend's house and learn to play the guitar, and then we do a little band garage thing, and then
Yeah.
people come around. But now it's like you're public everywhere because you're streaming it or you're putting it out
Yeah,
on a
you put it
post.
right to the world, and, like, right away, you could get a big hit from the haters
Yeah, right, exactly. And
instead of,
so,
like, building from the basement. Like, I
yeah,
I learned in the basement, in the
yeah,
garage,
yeah,
in the practice area, and
mm,
nobody heard us
yeah,
until we chose
absolutely.
to get out there.
Mm. So
And
somewhat of a
maybe some
safe
people are
space.
kind of messing
Yeah.
themselves up by getting doing it a little too early.
Yeah. Well, you gotta have a safe space to grow into it, right? Before you get shut down in it, and that's super important. I love that. Yeah.
That's awesome. But if people go to jerryhenderson.org, is
Yep.
that how they connect with you? Is that how
Yeah,
they, like, make appointments
absolutely.
or, link to you?
Yeah, so they can go to jerryhenderson.org. That'll have all my social stuff there. So you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, etc. You can also shoot me an email at jerry@jerryhenderson.org. But then
Mhm.
they also can go there if they're interested in learning more about the coaching and the stuff that I do, and set up a free call where we'll just connect and see if
Awesome.
working together is a fit. And we go from there, see what happens. So
I
yeah,
want to let everybody know that's fully clickable. We've been on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
perfect.
Within the podcast description, that URL is fully clickable. And on every platform that we're going to be on all the major platforms by tomorrow, like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, other ones. And it will be clickable. And immediately, the Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube versions of the show that have been live right now are out there in the world. As soon as we log off, it's out there. So
cool.
I want to let everybody know we'll create a landing page for everybody so they can just pick whatever platform they want to kind of check this out again and share it with your friends. And I do encourage people to actually click on jerryhenderson.org. And, if you were motivated by what we said tonight, click on it and go and connect with Jerry. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Phantom. It's been a gift being here with you, man, and sharing with your audience. And so thankful that you've got this platform to add value into people's life. What a gift.
I want to thank you too for being here. And I appreciate everybody who comes on the show, and hope the audience got a lot from out of what we were talking about tonight. And look forward to maybe if you have a book or want to come back with some other programs in the future, we have people come back. So thank you.
Love that. I so enjoyed this conversation, and more than a conversation, this connection. It's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Really cool. Awesome.